I want you to remember the moment you assumed something was guaranteed. A business deal too big to fail, a country too powerful to be challenged, a stage so enormous that only one nation could possibly stand at the center. That was the United States' relationship with the 2026 World Cup until this week shattered that illusion. Before we go any further, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like and share this video because we need to spread this analysis far and wide. I'm Robert Reich. I'm a professor of public policy at the University of California, Berkeley, and I've spent my career studying the intersection of economics, power, and democracy. Today, I want to explain what's really going on here, who benefits, who pays the price, and how the underlying economic forces are shaping these outcomes. Because in the blink of an eye, the most profitable, most watched, most historic matches of the tournament, the games that crown legends and shape global memory, were ripped out of America's hands. And no one begged for them, no one asked permission. Canada and Mexico simply took them. It wasn't a negotiation, it was a quiet takeover. Millions of fans woke up thinking the United States would host the grand finale of football's biggest stage. Instead, they discovered a shift that rewrites power in North American sports. FIFA didn't just move matches, it moved prestige, identity, and global spotlight. And it placed that spotlight on countries most people thought were merely supporting characters in a US-led tournament. What changed? How did a nation with billion-dollar stadiums, corporate giants, and political influence lose what it assumed it already owned? The answer has nothing to do with money and everything to do with power. Because power isn't about who looks strongest on paper, it's about who delivers when the world is watching. And the United States wasn't ready, Canada and Mexico were. Over the last 48 hours, FIFA made a decision that millions still can't wrap their heads around. They didn't reward the richest country. They rewarded the most prepared. They rewarded the most disciplined. They rewarded the countries that acted like the World Cup was a responsibility, not a trophy they were entitled to. And here's the part that truly caught the United States off guard. FIFA trusted its neighbors more. Before I explore how that trust was earned, I'm going to show you why this wasn't just a scheduling change. It was a symbolic rebalance, a moment signaling that North America's center of gravity is moving and not toward the country everyone expected. Because this story doesn't start with extravagance or stadium size. It starts with what FIFA saw behind closed doors. The moment where preparation, not power, determined who would control history. If you look closely at any turning point in history, it never arrives with fanfare. It comes quietly, disguised as paperwork, meetings, and progress reports. That is exactly how the United States lost control of the World Cup. Not through protest, not through diplomatic pressure, but through a spreadsheet on a desk at FIFA headquarters. Late reports, missed deadlines, stadiums still negotiating contracts instead of pouring concrete, security plans rewritten for the third time, political disputes inside cities that were supposed to be united for the world's most watched event. On the surface, these looked like temporary inconveniences, just the usual chaos behind any major project. But FIFA wasn't looking at excuses, they were measuring trust. While American organizers insisted progress would catch up, Canada and Mexico weren't talking, they were finishing. Toronto's stadium upgrades were ahead of schedule. Vancouver's security architecture was being finalized with precision. Mexico City's renovation of the Aztec, a cathedral of world football, was proceeding like an orchestra, organized, practiced, and perfectly timed. Then came the moment of reckoning. It happened on a single day inside a closed-door or review session in Doha. FIFA executives compared every host's status report. And for the first time, the United States didn't look like a leader, it looked like a liability. On that day, the allocation of matches began quietly shifting away from America, one knockout round at a time. There was no press announcement, no dramatic confrontation, just a silent transfer of prestige from one column to another. And with it, the emotional core of the tournament. On that day, the United States didn't lose matches, it lost confidence, FIFA's confidence. And nothing damages your power faster than when others stop relying on you. To understand how the US lost its grip, we must dismantle a false belief that dominates not only sports but global politics. the assumption that money equals competence. The US had the biggest stadiums, the biggest sponsors, the biggest potential audience, but money can only build the stadium. It cannot build the culture. It cannot install urgency. It cannot replace unity with funding. Canada approached the World Cup as a mission. Mexico approached it as heritage. The United States approached it as a business deal, and FIFA could feel the difference. Where Mexico honored football's legacy with modern precision and Canada mobilized its entire political system behind the event, American organizers treated preparation like a market opportunity. Corporate negotiations dragged. Cities fought over costs. Stadium owners demanded new concessions. Everyone wanted a bigger piece of the cake before the cake was even baked. Contrast that with Canada and Mexico. While the US debated profits, they delivered progress. While the US negotiated corporate rights, they executed infrastructure. While the US pitched potential, they demonstrated reliability. So, when people ask, why would FIFA take the most valuable matches away from America? The answer isn't hidden, it's painfully clear. FIFA didn't punish the United States, punished itself, because there is one rule in global power that never changes. The world doesn't follow the biggest player, it follows the player it can count on. And in 2026, FIFA realized that the reliable leaders weren't in the boardrooms of New York or Los Angeles, but in the preparation halls of Toronto, Vancouver, and Mexico City. But if competence earned Canada and Mexico this victory, what exactly allowed such massive cracks to form inside the United States? What structural weaknesses turned the superpower into the least dependable host? To answer that, we need to look beyond football and into America's system itself. What happened in Canada and Mexico over the last 2 years reads like a masterclass in strategic execution. While the United States relied on its reputation, these nations relied on results. They didn't make speeches. They didn't promise grandeur. They acted. Canada transformed its approach into a coordinated operation that left no room for error. Federal authorities worked seamlessly with provincial governments. Every sector, transportation, security, stadium renovation, moved in unison. Deadlines weren't just met, they were anticipated. FIFA inspectors repeatedly described Canadian facilities as models of precision. Toronto's stadium wasn't simply ready, it was prepared as if the world were already inside it. Vancouver's renovations earned praise for security layouts so thorough that FIFA officials called them unprecedented in recent history. This wasn't luck. It was discipline, foresight, and absolute clarity of purpose. Mexico, meanwhile, leveraged its deep cultural relationship with football. Stadiums like the iconic Aztec weren't just modernized, they were transformed into spaces where history and progress coexisted. Inspectors spoke of walking into Mexico's venues as stepping into a place where the past and future of the sport collided. The infrastructure upgrades, transportation, hotels, fan programs were executed not just on time, but with meticulous attention to detail. Mexico delivered a promise embedded in tradition. Football matters here, and the nation honors it. Contrast these approaches with the US, and the difference is stark. Canada and Mexico didn't wait for agreements. They didn't negotiate privileges. They earned the right to host the marquee matches through tangible results. This is why FIFA began quietly reallocating matches because competence, not scale or wealth, had proven decisive. And here is the lesson that extends far beyond the stadium. In the modern global economy, the assumption that size equals power has been quietly eroding. Today, the world rewards those who deliver. Canada and Mexico didn't inherit their position. They earned it through reliability. This mirrors trends beyond football, in global finance, in vaccine distribution, in technology alliances. Nations are now evaluated not by their historical dominance, but by their capacity to act decisively and follow through. Execution has become the new currency of influence, and the United States, long accustomed to being the default leader, is now encountering the consequences of over-reliance on reputation. Consider the symbolism. FIFA moved the semifinals to Canadian and Mexican cities, not because they had the deepest pockets, but because they demonstrated the ability to host history itself. The world is watching, and for the first time in modern North American sports, preparation is more valuable than power. This shift is not just temporary, it is a structural recalibration. Countries that act reliably rise, while those that rely on scale or legacy falter. The message is stark. Global leadership is earned through competence, not claimed through size. And as we move deeper into this story, the question becomes unavoidable. What does this mean for America's future role, not just in football, but in the broader architecture of global influence? What we are witnessing with the 2026 World Cup is more than a tournament. It is a symbolic shift in the balance of influence within North America. For decades, the United States assumed the spotlight, projecting power, prestige, and leadership across borders. The expectation was simple. America hosts, America dominates, and the world watches on its terms. Canada and Mexico have disrupted that narrative by executing flawlessly and earning FIFA's trust. They have claimed the marquee moments, the semifinals, the knockout matches, the games that create legends. In doing so, they are asserting something far deeper than sports, a new hierarchy where preparation, reliability, and cultural legitimacy define leadership. Every goal scored in Toronto or Mexico City will now carry an extra weight of symbolism. These moments will be etched into the collective memory of billions of fans, creating an enduring impression that leadership in North America is no longer monopolized by the United States. Canada, historically perceived as peripheral, now hosts the drama that defines careers and global attention. Mexico, long celebrated for its passionate football culture, reaffirms its centrality in the sports heritage while demonstrating modern efficiency. This is a paradigm shift. It signals that influence is increasingly decentralized. The center of gravity has moved, and for the first time, the United States must observe as its neighbors shape narratives, culture, and identity on a continental scale. This isn't just a loss of matches, it's a recalibration of prestige, an unspoken acknowledgement that the rules of power have changed. History has a way of repeating itself, not in exact events, but in patterns. The 2026 World Cup scenario mirrors the global economic shifts of the 1970s and 1980s. Back then, the United States assumed it would always dominate manufacturing, finance, and technological innovation. Germany and Japan, smaller and scarred by history, quietly rebuilt their systems with precision, discipline, and long-term vision. They didn't rely on reputation. They relied on performance. They executed when the world expected delay, and eventually they claimed leadership in sectors the US once assumed it owned. Now the same lesson appears in sports. America relied on its reputation, its stadiums, its financial capacity, and assumed that the world would follow. Canada and Mexico, like post-war Germany and Japan, relied on action, consistency, and strategic foresight. Their preparation became their leverage. Their results became their authority. And just as the US once underestimated the quiet rise of global industrial competitors, it underestimated the quiet precision of its neighbors. History teaches us that dominance without discipline is temporary, wealth without execution is fragile, prestige without reliability is easily transferred to those willing to do the work. And in June 2026, as the world watches the World Cup unfold, the echo of history will be impossible to ignore. The rise of prepared, reliable actors over assumed powerhouses is not a momentary anomaly. It is a systemic lesson. The next question we must ask is this: how far can this shift extend beyond football, beyond North America? How is the modern world redefining leadership? And what does it mean for nations that refuse to adapt? The story does not end with FIFA's decision. It begins there. Canada and Mexico have earned the marquee matches, but the implications ripple far beyond the stadium walls. In Canada, the youth football system will experience an unprecedented surge. Grassroots programs, domestic leagues, and national investment in talent development will accelerate, fueled by the global spotlight now firmly fixed on Canadian cities. Toronto and Vancouver are no longer just hosts. They're becoming incubators of the next generation of football talent. Mexico, meanwhile, consolidates its global football reputation. The renovations of iconic stadiums, the seamless fan experience, and the operational excellence all send a message to sponsors, broadcasters, and international organizations. Mexico is not only a guardian of football heritage, but a capable executive of modern global events. The Aztec, already legendary, will now host matches whose outcomes will define narratives for decades. And what about the United States? The country remains a significant host, but the loss of marquee matches is a lesson in global perception. Size and investment cannot replace consistency, coordination, and cultural legitimacy. The U.S. must confront a structural truth. Prestige is fleeting if not reinforced by preparation. America's future influence in global sports and potentially in other arenas of international leadership will depend on its willingness to adapt or risk watching as others quietly take the lead. As the countdown to June 2026 continues, the question is clear. What will nations prioritize in the future? Reputation or results? Power or preparedness? Because the world has started to answer that question, and FIFA's decision provides a blueprint. The 2026 World Cup is more than a football tournament. It is a lens into the shifting nature of global leadership, a signal that influence is earned through action rather than inherited through size. Canada and Mexico did not negotiate for glory. They delivered it. The United States did not fail because it lacked resources. It failed because it relied on assumptions rather than execution. This moment is a turning point. It signals the rise of reliability over dominance, discipline over entitlement, and preparation over reputation. When the first whistle blows in Toronto, when fans cheer in Mexico City, history will remember not just the goals, but the lessons behind them. Leadership is not claimed, it is proven. Influence is not inherited, it is earned. And in North America, the center of gravity has shifted, perhaps forever. The lesson is simple but profound. The world watches those who act, not those who promise. And if you want to understand where power is moving next, whether in sports, economics, or global politics, pay attention to the nations that deliver when it matters most. If this story fascinates you, if you want to see how global power dynamics are quietly being rewritten every day, make sure you've subscribed and turned on notifications. Because understanding who actually holds influence isn't optional, it's essential. The world is moving fast, and you need to see it unfold.